Alrighty everyone, welcome back. It is now August 19th of 2023, and given that there's a lot of things happening right now, not just with Snow White 2024, but also with a lot of unannounced actual titles that were supposed to be presented at D23 that are now running into trouble between Bob Iger and the Disney board, and exactly what they are trying to figure out to exactly announce new slates, anything related to Marvel, Star Wars, or just Disney in general. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support. And let's get right into the subject, shall we? Now, we know that there's a lot of things happening right now between Rachel ZEGLER, Gal Gadot, as well as other members of the Snow White cast, including those who portray the Seven Dwarfs. There's a lot of problems arising out of this movie. Now, we know that Bob Iger and the board have really been trying to figure out what they can actually do with the ongoing live-action remakes. We already talked about how they are already doubling down. They are upping the ante on their DEI agenda and essentially ridding of any of the source material from many of these very popular fan-favorite animated movies being turned into live action. Now, moving on to the next big thing here, we know that there's a lot of things happening with Rachel ZEGLER lately with all of the surfacing interviews that were done from a very long while ago where she's literally, just down-talking Snow White 1937. She's talking about how the prince is a stalker and a creeper, and the list goes on, but it doesn't stop there. Now, we know that a number of projects over at Disney have been sabotaged and have been compromised, and this is all a mixture of factors. One of the biggest ones of all has a lot to do with Bob Iger's cost containment plan, but it gets worse than that. With Snow White 24 getting much backlash since the leaked photos of the Seven Dwarfs surfaced, one major development has to do with Rachel ZEGLER after she was fired and laid off from the upcoming Snow White sequel that was already greenlit behind the scenes at Disney that was ready to be presented at D23. Disney not only let her go from the sequel because of the ongoing backlash and criticism that they have been receiving with ZEGLER being cast as Snow White, but that it also has to do with how Disney is now developing new plans for the next Snow White movie with a brand new cast. ZEGLER was reportedly not taking this well behind the scenes as she has been trying to keep her role as Snow White for the following film that she recently got let go from the Disney higher-ups. Bob Iger and the board also dropped the actor who portrayed the current Seven Dwarfs, or the actors, I should say, or as they call them, the magical creatures. Now, additionally, ZEGLER was also making high demands, get this, for a pay increase by triple, where the Disney CEO, Bob Iger himself, and the board were not agreeing with all of that, and that also led to further complications on the financial end of the spectrum. Now, guys, let me pause here for one moment. This actually is very similar to what has been happening with Daisy Ridley for the Rey movie. She's been demanding that she should get double the pay, and now Disney board members, everyone high up at Disney wants to recast Daisy Ridley as Rey Skywalker in that Star Wars movie, which, let's be real, I don't think that they are going to recast, but not to get too off track here, we know that Snow White, the original plan by Disney to make this into a cinematic universe, has fallen apart. Now, this is a very similar scenario. I wouldn't say similar, but it did somewhat happen to Kristen Stewart, where she was set up for a Snow White sequel. She got fired for way worse reasons. I'm not going to dive into that right now. But she got fired from her Snow White sequel, and that's why the one that I believe dropped in 2016, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it was just called The Huntsman, correct me if I'm wrong on that as well, but there were initial plans where Kristen Stewart was supposed to come back for the sequel. She got fired for very well-known reasons. You guys probably know exactly what I'm talking about. And the same exact scenario applies here for different factors. Number one, Rachel ZEGLER was being overly demanding with her pay increase for the next Snow White iteration, for the next Snow White film, I should say. And number two, it wasn't just that, but the Disney board, they were very unhappy lately with the backlash that they just keep on getting from fans of the original 1937 film. Even the son of the original director from the 37 movie actually spoke out against Disney, calling them very radical and having radical thoughts about what this movie is all about. I mean, when you have the son of the director of Snow White in 1937 calling Disney out, that's when you know you have a real problem. And even he himself said, "Walt and my father will be spinning in their graves." He literally said that. So, moving on, Disney was about to announce a second Snow White film at this year's D23 event. However, the concrete plan right now, which by the way is a mess, by Disney is to make another remake of the film with a brand new cast for the sequel. Now this is where complications get even worse. Some board members, surprisingly, are trying to keep Rachel ZEGLER on as Snow White and are fighting for her to stay with the original plan for the sequel that is now causing an ongoing shakeup between board members and even Bob Iger. Many of the members want to bring ZEGLER back and rehire her for a sequel. With ZEGLER fired from the Snow White sequel, Disney is now in a phase of panic on how they are going to craft a second film with a new cast, as they have plans to make an announcement now for a new said project by the first earnings call for 2024. The ongoing Disney shakeup between the board members and, of course, others is the true battle to keep ZEGLER on as Snow White for the next sequel. So, it's almost like ZEGLER inadvertently created a Disney shakeup after she got fired and let go from the second one for not only being overly demanding, for this movie getting a lot of backlash, being number 2, and number 3 is the fact that, let's face it, they have come to the realization that this movie is not going to make money. It's not going to be a blockbuster hit. So from what it sounds like, there's a large portion of the board members and Bob Iger trying to figure out, alright, how do we handle another Snow White film that's going to be considered a sequel that's going to have a different cast? How do we handle that? Well, guys, if you ask me, that sounds ridiculous. It just sounds like a remake or a different iteration. And why would you even want to call it a sequel if it's going to be a full-on recast, which sounds ludicrous? I think what's going to end up happening is you're not going to get another Snow White film. They're going to call it a day once this movie comes out, and it just completely just fails at the box office. I don't see them making another Snow White. What I do see happening is that we could very well see another company, perhaps, making a reimagining of Snow White and kind of picking up where the backlash left off with Disney's iteration, to the point where anything else that's going to be made could very well be seen as good. I think that's a very big possibility, to be quite honest. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we know that this film is a mess, and I think it's going to be very intriguing to see what this trailer is going to look like next month. Alright, so the trailer is still on for D23 as of right now. We'll fill you in, guys, later, because there's been a lot of rumblings that they want to drop a lot of these announcements and reveals at D23 because of everything happening with the ongoing lockdowns for specific projects and development, and other factors as well related to WGA and SAG. But anyway, guys, drop a comment below, fill me in below in the comments what you all have to say about this, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys next time.
From night to moon, we hear them moans again. No.